Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining us for this Saturday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Dave Percy, and I'll be hosting tonight's show. On the times again of the show, 5:30 APB, ARCS, and 5:30 also for KUAC on 9.4. 360 North, always at 7:30 p.m. and 5 a.m. the following morning for Alaska Public Media, and the show uploaded on YouTube by 8 p.m. each day. Clouds here across the southeast coast gave a fairly significant amount of rain over the last 24 hours through the, especially through the central areas there. Some of that falling as snow down at the low elevations or mixed in with snow. And that due to an upper trough that is developed over the eastern interior now down into the Gulf of Alaska, southwest flow, and got a boundary forming there, which is persisting into the evening. Otherwise, that same trough responsible for the increase in the clouds here from the Alaska Range northward into the Tanana Valley, and some areas of light snow or flurries trying to develop here around the greater Northway Toke area, in this area where the clouds are enhanced, and up north of the Brooks Range, fairly widespread area of light snow falling from roughly close to Barrow and the eastern North Slope and the Arctic coast eastward there to the Mackenzie River Delta. Otherwise, lots of sunshine across the interior, as you can see, on down across south central Alaska. Once again, good VFR conditions even out into the Bering Sea, St. Lawrence Island. A lot of clear skies, and out to the west, not much going on. Northwesterly flow here, a few scattered showers around the Pribilof Islands, down across eastern Aleutians and Alaska Peninsula, where Cold Bay picked up nearly half an inch of rain out of that pattern here today, but other areas saw far less. And then a lot of sunshine breaking out here with the light winds out from Adak to Atka over to Shemya, but a system there just to the south. And on the chart today, got some showers developing in the Gulf of Alaska, and they've remained off the coast throughout the day today, and probably will this evening, but gradually going to start expanding and pushing inland here over the next day or so. And then the precipitation covering the panhandle, a lot heavier than I thought it was going to be yesterday, when I thought it would just be showery, but Sitka picked up 1.25 inches at least in the last 24 hours. Cake had about 1 inch of rain, and Angoon's 3/4 of an inch falling. And that shifting northward with rain falling in Juneau now, and also some gusty north to northeast winds across the inside waters here of the northern panhandle, 15 to 30 miles per hour, gusts as high as 40 to 45 in the channeled areas, lighter winds down to the south, and breeze is starting to pick up here in the interior, but this area of snow from the Brooks Range on out to the Arctic coast, mostly east of Barrow. They're kind of right on the edge there with a few flurries, and lots of sunshine over the interior here, Kodiak Island, up across all the western interior, right up through the Seward Peninsula, the Noatak Valley, and then these scattered showers here in that northwest flow coming into the eastern Aleutians and the Alaska Peninsula. And not a lot of change in that pattern for tonight. This system, weak as it is, brings a threat of some moisture mostly to the western Aleutians. Otherwise, no change in the pattern here from the Alaska Peninsula on out to the Nikolsky. Dry conditions, mostly clear skies there along the southwest coast and inland, as well as out towards St. Lawrence Island, and once again right up into the Chukchi Sea. And this trough up here keeping snow, periods of, from the Brooks Range out to the Arctic coast. Again, Barrow, Wainwright, so kind of on that western edge, better chances on to the east. And the clouds continue to increase and should see areas of light snow begin to develop here, especially over the mountainous terrain, mostly from the Alaska Range northward, but even south of the mountains now, Copper River Basin, look for a general increase in the clouds, and maybe by late tonight seeing some areas of light snow over the higher terrain developing. Showers now, pretty good chance for Cordova and less of a chance for Valdez, but general increase in the clouds here for Prince William Sound and the Kenai Peninsula especially, and less of that out to the west. Partly to mostly cloudy Kodiak Island, and as I mentioned, no change for the Aleutians. And the southeast coast here, you're holding on to the area of moisture, now shifting a little bit farther to the north and tending to shut off down to the south. And for tomorrow, that area is probably going to be more enhanced than what I'm showing here. And of course, rain, pretty good area of it that's enhancing throughout the day, mostly over the northern southeast coast. So instead of the showery pattern I've got here, probably should be rain and snow. Of course, that'll be snow at higher elevations, which are pretty low snow levels here, especially over the northern panhandle tomorrow, and a little bit warmer and less in the way of moisture down to the south. And we still have that shower chance increasing here into Prince William Sound, Copper River Basin, and about the same all the way across the eastern interior, except we'll see clouds increasing here and some light snow showers, mostly over the Alaska Range. Some of that could slip into the Kuskokwim Valley, northern areas there, but also the winds, looking for northeast winds here through much of the interior, 15 to 30 miles an hour, some areas seeing gusts to 40 miles an hour. Higher elevations, summits, areas like possibly Indian Mountain, those locations, although there's less of a gradient back here to the northwest. No change up there in the Arctic coast with all the light snow over the central and eastern areas, with continued pretty good conditions back out to the west. High pressure sitting just northwest of Barrow, so pretty light winds up in that area. Light winds here across the Bering Sea, and even the Aleutians, still a little breezy here for the Fox Islands, Alaska Peninsula, with a threat of some showers continuing there from Pilot Point on over to Unalaska, and could be a little bit of rain with that system there over the western Aleutians, but winds really aren't anything significant with that system at all. Otherwise, for Monday's outlook, we've got a little bit better organized frontal system now with rain and wind along the southeast coast. Could be moderate to heavy here over the area, but also warmer temperatures coming in ahead of that system with those southerly and southeast winds developing. So looking at rising freezing levels with rain, could be a mixed condition there up toward Haines into Skagway, Klondike Highway to start with, and also an increase in the rain here for the North Gulf Coast. Rain and snow, Prince William Sound, kind of a mixed condition getting into, well, western Prince William Sound, and then the coast on down the coast of the peninsula, across Cook Inlet, and maybe some light stuff here on the west side. Otherwise, look for showers, Kodiak Island, some breaks falling in behind. No change over the interior, quite windy again, 20 to 30 mile an hour northeast winds, gusts 40, possibly 45 miles an hour. Quite a gradient here across the interior between the highs that settled in up over the north slope and the low center here in the northern Gulf of Alaska. Also could be some isolated snow showers showing up here over the mountainous areas of the mountains here, Kilbrook, Auckland Mountains over the southwest there, but nothing significant if they develop at all, and still just scattered showers out over the Alaska Peninsula, but pretty windy conditions as well, and northeast winds kind of shove the shower conditions from the Pribilofs, just scattered and isolated on down to the Aleutians. A very weak low may make for a little more in the way of some continuous rain out towards Shemya, but winds out there pretty darn light. Temperatures across the southeast coast today in the mid-30s, where the rain and snow is falling here. 36 in Juneau this afternoon, 48 at Sitka, up to 50 both at Klawock and Craig, and I believe Heidelberg. Otherwise, 46 in Yakutat, a 47 in Cordova, Valdez up to 46. Kind of cool here, Copper River Basin, Gulkana at 32, or Kennecott, McCarthy, 36 degrees, and a 22 at Tok, up 10 degrees from that in Fairbanks, right at the freeze mark there, 47 Talkeetna, mid to upper 40s across the Kenai Peninsula and Cook Inlet. Farther up to the north, 12 at Anatuvik, 25 at Fort Yukon, 21 at Eagle. They came up from a low this morning of 6 degrees below zero, which I believe was the coldest in the state. Otherwise, this afternoon, upper 20s to near 30 for the Arctic coast. There's 24 at Umiat Airfield, 35 at Ambler, and mid-30s here on down to McGrath. Mid to upper 30s as you head down toward Bethel. It was a little breezy there today, northeasterlies 15 to 30, possibly gusts to 35 miles an hour. And then we're looking at a 47-degree temperature at Nome and upper 30s to near 40 there in the greater Kotzebue area, 43 at Savunga. Mid to upper 40s for the Pribilofs this afternoon. Temperatures range from 53 at Akiak to 50 degrees even at Cold Bay. Upper 40s for the Aleutians. Lows for tonight. Not much change, lower 40s out west there in the Bering Sea. Again, some areas falling below zero, mostly around the Eagle area, but general increase in the clouds will tend to keep these temperatures a little warmer than they would be otherwise if the skies were stark clear. 20s for the Arctic coast, 20s southern Alaska, 30s for the Panhandle. Highs for tomorrow, 40s for the southeast coast to lower 50s out along the immediate coastline there. Lower 30s and 20s, Copper River Basin, northward, Brooks Range in the teens, 20s, North Slope and Arctic coast, 30s and 40s out toward the southwest coast to near 50 over the Aleutians. Flying weather tomorrow with the snow, IFR, North Slope and the eastern Arctic coast for the most part. Good VFR through the interior here and marginal VFR with that area of moisture. Could be some IFR in there as well. Otherwise, marginal conditions back to the west, and then out over the Bering Sea, it's looking IFR from the Pribilofs back northwest. But notice Nunivak Island, St. Lawrence Island, Bering Strait staying VFR, and areas of marginal VFR across the Aleutians. Probably not as extensive as what this map's showing, but then we've got some IFR showing up out here west tomorrow, that next system. Still a lost area IFR out over the central Bering Sea. Good conditions along the coast again. Maybe some marginal VFR developing for the Bering Strait. And then IFR now isolated there on the slopes of the eastern Brooks Range on the north side. VFR through the interior again, and marginal VFR. Could be some areas of IFR developing in this zone too. Throughout the day, but you can see here most of this staying off the coast through tomorrow. And for passes, Anatuvik, marginal VFR, both for Anatuvik and Adigan. Lowest conditions will be on the northern entrance. VFR down to the south. Lake Clark and Merrill, good VFR tomorrow. Rainy, wide open. Same forecast for windy. No change for Isabel or Mentasta from the conditions we've had the last several days. Tanita as well. Portage VFR. Chilkoot and White, though, becoming marginal, if not just marginal, the entire day with possible IFR developing here on those southern entrances. For the freezing levels, 2,000 to 4,000 feet here across the southeast coast. At the surface, covering much of interior Alaska, kind of a warm pocket lingering out here over the southeast Bering Sea to the Alaska Peninsula back to the northwest. And for icing, could be a developing area here over Prince William Sound, above about 4,000 to 6,000 feet. More extensive though here for the southeast coast, again above about the 4,000 to 6,000 foot level. All of the light isolated moderate rime variety type icing. And the jet stream, deep trough digging southward now into the Gulf of Alaska. Good northerly jet here coming across the western interior, 70 to 100 knots. Southwest, a lot lighter here coming onto the northern southeast coast. The main Pacific jet, much stronger, staying well to the south, so no big storms really going to affect the area. And for 9,000 feet, good northeast winds in the interior, up to 50 knots. Otherwise, excuse me, 25 to 35 knots back up to the Brooks Range. Northwest 30 across the Alaska Peninsula. And southeasterlies, mostly along the southeast coast areas, a little lighter inland there at about 30 knots. And then for 3,000 feet, we've got south to southeasterlies, about the same pattern at that we saw at 9,000 feet here for both the Panhandle and Gulf of Alaska. Really gusty or really brisk northeast winds, 25 to 50 knots here through the interior. Lighter though up to the northwest and on up to the Arctic coast. Northwesterlies, 20 to 35 knots through the Alaska Peninsula, on over to Kodiak Island, and then really light wind conditions west of Nikolsky to Shemya. For turbulence, moderate chop, pretty widespread area here across southern Alaska, on into the northern panhandle with plenty of light to isolated moderate chop, kind of diminishing as you head north there, and also diminishing as you head over toward Unalaska down the peninsula. And after the break, I'll be back to look at the marine forecasts.
NOAA's national marine sanctuaries protect areas of national significance for their exceptional natural beauty and resources. Research and monitoring expeditions provide scientists with valuable knowledge about the biodiversity and ecological integrity of these fragile underwater systems. The knowledge does not come easy. Their mission is challenging and sometimes dangerous. But these risks pale in comparison to the wealth of information that awaits them. This is Expedition Sanctuary Quest. Preparing a research vessel to go to sea is a huge undertaking. Over the course of one day, the empty ship transforms into a high-tech research platform. Tons of equipment, provisions, and supplies have to be loaded and stowed. The crew must double-check every last detail. Once at sea, the ship must be entirely self-sufficient. To keep everything running smoothly, the crew charts a cruise plan to coincide with the schedule of research. The goal of this expedition is to assess the health of offshore and nearshore marine ecosystems. The NOAA ship MacArthur will spend 2 months at sea, focusing on all the national marine sanctuaries along the West Coast, from Southern California to Northern Washington. Research takes place around the clock, and as night closes over the sanctuary, a team of special map makers deploy their side-scan sonar. The sonar will provide acoustic information to make detailed maps of the ocean floor. As one set of scientists are finishing up the night shift, another is being called to start their day. Wake-up calls come early, usually before the sun is up. By dawn, Chief Scientist Sarah Fangman is on the bridge, checking the plans for the deployment of the remotely operated vehicle.
Our weather has turned a little bit, and so we're going to have to move to a more protected area where we can work. Well, as long as we're heading in this direction, because the weather is forcing us that way, we'd like to stop.
Once calmer waters are found, the science continues. The remotely operated vehicle crew prepares their machine for its dive. The ROV allows the scientists to penetrate the unexplored depths, which account for 90% of the ocean. There is no idle time. While the ROV is being prepared, another group of scientists takes seawater and surface plankton samples. As the samples are collected, they go straight to the onboard lab, where they are processed and analyzed.
The ROV can stay down many hours, whereas divers are limited with supplied air, and we can rotate shifts and go 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
The cameras on the ROV are the scientists' eyes into the ocean. These cameras will confirm what the scientists have found through the side-scan sonar mapping. The ROV also allows scientists the opportunity to do species counts and more detailed habitat classification.
Look at the anemones and the corals, cup corals.
Oh yeah.
That is
excellent.
gorgeous.
Excellent. Habitat's changed dramatically.
Yeah.
Oh,
did you
nice
see it just
one.
caught
Right.
that?
Yeah.
Did you see that?
Oh yeah.
A research ship can be a dangerous place with hazards all around. Everyone must be alert to these and know how to deal with emergencies. Fire and evacuation drills are performed without warning at any time of the day or night. As the science work goes on, the ship's crew also works around the clock. Engineers keep the engines operating properly, while the deck officers constantly monitor the ship's location. The deck crew operates all the machinery needed to perform the research, and the galley crew has to be sure all 40 people on board get fed. As night falls again, another shift of scientists begin their work in trawling for plankton.
Half moon out there, so there's quite a bit of light, which will affect how fast and how high these critters come up in the water column.
Okay, watch the slack there, folks.
Okay, got her. Let her go.
One more step in measuring productivity of an area.
Juvenile deposits, krill, squid, copepods.
After a long, wet night, dawn finally comes. The ship begins a transit to the next area for work. As miles of ocean slide beneath the hull, the observations and data collecting continue. Seabird and marine mammal observers are out working. Bird and whale counts help determine the health of a given area. For 2 months, this grueling schedule of day and night scientific work continues, searching for the understanding that will provide solutions to better manage resources within our national marine sanctuary.
Welcome back. Well, strongest winds again will be over the northern areas here with gale warnings out for the north central coast at 35 knots out of the east, and then more southeasterly and dropping off down the coastline. Pretty light winds here across the southern inside waters, and then northerlies 20 for Stevens Passage, pick up to 30 knots for northern Lynn Canal. And the outlook for Monday, call it south-southeast winds here for the coast, 20 to 25 knots, actually mostly 25 knots with 10-foot seas, and small craft advisories for Stevens Passage on down to Clarence Strait with 20-knot winds out of the southeast for northern Lynn Canal. For Prince William Sound, small craft advisories tomorrow, northeast 25 knots, northeast 30 for northern Cook Inlet with 30-knot winds right down across Kamishak Bay. Small craft advisories for Shelikof Strait, and small crafts out for all of the North Gulf Coast and the Barren Islands with 6 to 9 foot seas. For Monday, look for a big increase in the winds here on the east side of Kodiak, west 30 knots, possibly gale force, maybe. Otherwise northwest 30 here from Kamishak Bay through the Barrens, lighter winds for Shelikof Strait. Gales here for this portion of the North Gulf Coast out of the northeast. Small craft advisories continue for Prince William Sound and northern Cook Inlet. North 30 for Bristol Bay tomorrow. Northwest 25 to 30 knots blowing across the peninsula, and 30-knot winds actually extending up to Sitkinak. Then for Monday, north to northwest 25 to 30 knots. Still good for small craft advisories there for the peninsula, and no change here southwest of Kodiak. North 25 in Bristol Bay. For the Aleutians, 30 to 35 knot northwesterlies there for mostly across Unalaska Island. Small craft advisories west of there drop back to just 15 to 20 knots for the central Aleutians, and lighter, more northerly west of Adak. For Monday, turn it northwest 15 to 20 knots. Small craft advisories, Adak and Atka north at 25, and then 20-knot winds mostly from the north on over to and across the Fox Islands. For the southwest coast, northerlies at 30 knots south of Nunivak Island. Lighter winds north of the island, dropping down as low as 15 knots. For St. Lawrence Island into the northern Bering Sea, light northerlies for the Pribilofs. And for Tuesday, kick those up or nudge it up to about 20 knots there for the Pribilofs. Small craft advisories now St. Matthew Island, 30-knot winds all along the southwest coast, northeast 25, so coming up a little bit there for St. Lawrence Island. The Arctic coast, central and eastern coast, northeast 15 to as high as 20 knots. Easterlies at 20 knots here, all the way down to Cape Thompson, and then south of Cape Thompson, northeast at 15 or east-northeast. And that same pattern holds through Monday. You've got lighter easterly winds now from Cape Thompson all the way across the west side, a little more southeasterly here on the west side, southerlies for the central coast, and then holding northeast here, but only at 10 to 15 on the east side. For tonight, looking for continued light snow and fog there for the coast on into the north slope, and kind of a general increase in the clouds here, maybe some light snow developing over the higher terrain, but definitely looking at an increase in the winds as well. Showers expanding along the North Gulf Coast. It stays wet here over the Panhandle with snow depending on your elevation and your position inland, but the snow level is quite low here, drying out to the south. And then for tomorrow, much the same pattern, a little more widespread light snow activity now into the Copper River Basin. Also over the northern Panhandle, no change for the North Slope and Arctic coast. And looking at Monday, low center, 978 millibars here, western Gulf of Alaska, pretty good frontal system moving up into the Panhandle, so warmer air and a little bit heavier rain in store for that area on Monday. Areas of light snow here north of the Alaska Range over the eastern interior, and it stays quite windy here over the central interior, but mostly dry and clear. Have a great
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.